Hello, everybody. This is Justin Case from American Newscape. We're joining our friend Scott Dudley for American Consciousness, and please enjoy our new intro, worthy of our grandeur. Yeah, I'll go with that. Hello, Scott. Welcome back to American Newscape.
It reminds me of Santana when he went on stage at Woodstock. He was like tripping balls on mescaline, and he went out on stage and he just said he prayed to God. He said, "Just keep me in tune and on time." And the rest was history. Rock and roll history was made. Awesome
Well,
performance.
and Santana had a God-given gift. I mean, just being a master of the guitar, one of the few masters of the guitar, and he's still around.
Right? It's like with the topic today. It's ironic that he comes up because he's actually would fit into those qualifications. So hey, let's put business before pleasure. We haven't. Do we have any updates on the sponsorships yet?
No, we haven't. We've been a little busy. I'm sure they've been calling, but we'll get back after that.
Okay, well, we won't review the entire wish list, right? Because the show is only an hour long. But I wanted to mention I did run out of suntan lotion, and I'm going to the dog park every day for show development. And my concern is for the listener, because in the next couple of weeks I'm going to be so red that not only will your device begin to depixelate because it'll burn up, but I'm afraid that there also is a possibility of retinal damage. So if you know some people in the suntan industry and you don't want your eyes to burn out from my cheeks, hit us up. Our attorneys are working on stuff, and the executive producer Justin Case is able to kind of receive your well wishes and your calls.
Well, and
I got one other small thing for the sponsorship list.
okay.
My car is 23 and a half years old. And so it would just be a little bit of typing on the YouTube thing, and we could mention it. So we could be American Consciousness, sponsored by the 2025 Escalade with blacked out windows and 28-inch custom rims with spinners.
And
So
the
if you're that person and you want that coverage and you want that pop in your step, just hit us up. We got this.
well, and I don't want to. And being that my car's 29 years old, I don't need a car from the virtual world. But Scott, I'll remind you, if you're talking about retinal damage, we did an episode, and you brought a hack for retinal damage. So I encourage people to review that and stay out of the sun, stay in the shades.
There, I tend to take the sun to my back chair in the dog park because I'd rather be warm than sunburn.
Okay, that's good.
So I do that. Now, hey, sponsorship's one thing. Patronship. Do we have any patrons yet? Because I had an idea. I basically, if somebody's willing to be our patron, and like they have an Aunt Sarah, and that Aunt Sarah was like critically important to the U.S. consciousness, then we could put together a show. We could do something. Aunt Sarah would be memorialized, basically. And I don't think we need to review the price list with people right now, but because ultimately, if that really really well endowed person decides to throw us a little extra coin, that we've got Aunt Sarah covered. So just kind of let's keep that out there too.
Oh,
So
okay.
patronage, sponsorship, we are open. We are generous, willing people ready to receive your gifts.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And a prayer circle, if you need a prayer circle, and Scott and I can come at it at different directions, and we'll get you covered.
Joel Osteen shouldn't be getting all the coin here. It should be spread the wealth, brothers and sisters.
Yeah, but buy us a big tent, and we'll take this on the road.
Hey, we could do that.
We could.
As long as I can take the dogs, we're good.
Well, no.
So the dog park. Last Saturday we had an interesting. It's first of all, it's turned into a think tank. So and it's a cool think tank because most think tanks are really stocked with like minds, right?
That's right.
Everybody's in the same thought bubble, and they're all just nodding and saying, yeah, pay me more money to nod my head, and everything will be fine. Our think tank is so diverse. We always have just this interesting blend of people who have a very, very different sets of beliefs. And so we'll sit there and we'll just kind of hash stuff out, and we won't always walk away going kumbaya or agreeing with each other. But the ideas get pushed and processed and challenged in ways that you don't get when you're just hanging around with everybody who like is in your bubble. So this last Saturday, I was the junior member at the table.
Wow.
I think Paloma, who's like 23, was outside of the circle, kind of hanging out on the periphery, because she's like one of those really wise people that just kind of dials in but doesn't like talk a lot. So I think she was hanging out there. But the table had Linda. We call her lascivious Linda because sometimes she kind of really goes into like sex stuff. But she's 76 years old and a retired sheriff's deputy. So she's kind of got that law and order thing going. We had Mike, who's in his mid-70s, and he's a local businessman, which is why I changed his name. Don't want to sponsor him. So, and then we had a lady in her mid-70s from Canada driving one of those, huge, awesome RV things that are just like self-contained apocalyptic vehicles. It was really, really awesome. But it wasn't Leslie Gore. I checked. I was like, I knew a Leslie from the early 60s. Was this you? But it wasn't. But she knew the song It's My Part. So it was the four of us at the table. And we were kind of rehashing like all the news events of the past few weeks and stuff. It was really cool having somebody from Canada. I mean, forgive them for their disability of being Canadian, but it was really cool having somebody from Canada at the table because they were able to say, it's not all about the United States. There's a whole world of stuff going on. And you guys are so like lost in your own little personal dramas and stuff. Guess what? It's a bigger world and there are more things going on. And that was really helpful to us. But at the end of the discussion, it was before, when we really launched into the think tank, it was Leslie who said, the best thing I can think of about where the world is today is that I'm old and I'm not going to have to go through very much more of it.
There you go. There you go.
And so that got us thinking. When we started thinking, what are we doing as elders? And it's almost like a scissors. So on the one hand, we've got age-related cognitive decline. I know that's kind of a complex. The alternative way to say that is sharp as a tack.
Right.
So when grandma's slipping gears, just say grandma's sharp as a tack, and we'll all know that you're referring to age-related cognitive decline. So we're all four of us at the table are experiencing it, right? We're all like, well, yeah, this is a thing. Linda's got like an artificial knee and one that doesn't work. Wow. And they're not the same knee. And so she's like she lives to walk and walks to live. Her dog likes to walk with her. And she has been fighting through like a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort, just trying to live her life, right? Mike has diabetes really, significantly. And guess what? His favorite things are booze and sweets.
That's bad. At least he doesn't smoke.
Well, only cigars and only once in a while.
Mike.
So, but so you see the conflict, right? The conflict of like life's pleasures for Mike versus the limitations that are just inexorable. They're creeping up. They've got you. They're doing so. We agreed. One of the things we agreed on the dog park, 4 people of very different backgrounds, that it was a good day when we could make it home continent without peeing on ourselves. Well, and for old people, that is a thing. It's like, the 30-year-olds running around the world don't realize, like, stuff changes. And so at the end of this, like Leslie says, at least we're all going to die, right? We don't have to go that far. And so we started thinking about this. It's not just us who are suffering as elders. We're being pushed for, like, every time I turn on the TV, I've got blue pills and blue gummies and this and that. And I'm like, are you guys suggesting that I'm supposed to be having sex like I'm 30? And I'm just not cool enough if I'm not getting it? You know what? And so I took the women at the table were like, you're lucky. We're supposed to be getting perky boobs and inflatable butts and act like we're 40 and getting like all this surgery to take away all of our natural fallen parts. And it's relentless. And that's all we get too. So on the one hand, we're falling apart. On the other hand, we're being pushed to spend all this money and time and effort, like self-esteem stuff. I mean, I've got Chuck Norris. He's like 80 gazillion years old, rolling up on me saying, hey, you could be a He-Man and Master of the Universe just like me. And I'm like, I'm sitting at home going, I'm lucky if I could do 5 push-ups, bro. and so we've got these two things pushing each other, right? And we're like, I'm going to visit the family on Thanksgiving. And the first thing that the young ones are going to do is they're going to run over and say, hey, Grandpa, can you help me program my brand new device? And I'm going to be, I was at the dog park yesterday, and Blue, the Golden Retriever Husky mix, opened up my phone with facial recognition.
Cool.
I'm like, there must be something in the settings to like sharpen this up a little bit. But like any other person my age, I'm lucky if I can get it to work. And I'm pushing buttons like mad, and stuff's turning on and stuff's turning off, and all of a sudden it's locked out, and I can't remember my passwords. And so the young people aren't going to come to us on Thanksgiving and say, hey, Grandpa, help me with this. They already know. We are worthless in terms of keeping up with the knowledge base that we need to function in today's society with the technology. They're not going to roll up on us and say, hey, Grandpa, tell us about the good old days with dial-up phones, before microwave ovens, when TVs had antennas with like aluminum foil on the end of them so that you could get 2 black and white channels that were just kind of semi-cloudy and fuzzy and stuff like that. Tell us about that, Grandpa. Those sound like really exciting times to us. So what's happened is we agreed at the table, us elders, so whatever we agree to is absolutely right, that the world has passed us by in ways that are significant, and in the ways that elders were previously useful has dissolved. It's not there anymore. We are superfluous. And then somebody brought up capitalism. Man, it's like we are a drag on the system. The only thing we're good for at this point is running up Medicare bills with constant doctor's appointments that just bum us out because nothing ever gets fixed. It's just like, yeah, we took your diabetes away. You're good now. Go have a candy bar. Or this or that, so at the table, we had this kind of like negative buzzkill about medical care anyway, because it seems like it's constant. It's Wednesday. What appointment do I have to go to today? Or which 2? And how long am I going to sit in waiting rooms? And what's not going to get fixed? And how much then is the government or somebody else going to pay for this stuff? And what's my copay out of my limited fixed income retirement? So we're all like bumming out on this, right? We're all but we're practical people. We are part of a can-do generation. Well, actually, they're baby boomers, and so they can-did. Yeah. And I'm kind of a Gen X cusp kid, so I never really did much anyhow. I was raised by the TV set. What can I say? So, but we said, so Linda, who's really practical, she's like the ex-sheriff deputy, right? She said, in my day, we used to have a saying, said, let's just take them all out back and shoot them. I said, and we all looked at each other like, that would solve the problem. But then we're like, oh, you know what? We live in different times. We don't want to be the bad guy.
Well, but that's, to me, Linda, it's a great idea, but that evolved into let's shoot one of them and see if the rest of them don't straighten up.
Nice. We were going to make an example out of you.
No, random. It'll be random. So they never know when there's going to be an adjustment in the norm.
I think that that's something we can add to this as we develop this idea a little bit farther. That's not such a bad idea. One of the things was the logistics came up. So, like, what do you do with a big pile of dead people? And I was like, I made a lot of money last week when we announced kind of how people report them. I bought stock in private prison companies, and that stock doubled in like 2 days. So a little day trading, and I got some action. Not enough to buy the Escalade, but I got some action.
So you're not only a capitalist, you're an opportunist capitalist.
Well, is there another kind?
Well, yeah, I believe so, Scott, but that's for another show.
A peace and love, kindness capitalist? That's going to be toughy. We'll see if the park can handle that
Okay.
put that together. So, all of us have seen Soylent Green. If you haven't seen Soylent Green, it's really worth seeing because it actually happened in the future in the movie, and it was this year. It was April of 2024. So ultimately in Soylent Green, the solution was to have all these like euthanasian places where they'd like put you to sleep and encourage it and say, and it was all happy and it was a peaceful ending and it was very dignified. And then they'd haul your body out back and make food out of you. And that food was then given to in an overpopulated world. And it was super popular. The brand that they had, there was Soylent Green. I'm spoiling the plot of the movie. I'm sorry. But ultimately they were like, fresh plankton from the sea creates the wonderful, delicious tasting, and we're only going to have it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Soylent Green. Wow. And so everybody was like lining up, there were riots trying to get Soylent Green, and it was people.
Well, at least they knew better than to call it spam.
Right, spam. Fried up with little eggs, and it is
Soylent
lunchtime in this household. Hey, it's keto. It's keto friendly. It'll work. But then we thought, that's probably a little bit pushing it. And then, Mike, who's, been in this community for many, many years and knows a lot of farmers and stuff, said, hey, you know what? Maybe we can increase crop yields. How are these guys at compost? We'll compost all the old people, and maybe we can get like a 20-30% crop yield boost. And so we were like, you know what, agriculture community, that kind of lines up. Because, we all lived through COVID, and COVID, we had to like rent refrigerated trucks to stack up the bodies. So if this really caught fire and got popular, we don't want to have to go through that again. So ultimately, the composting, I think, was the best idea that we came up with. What would you do with a pile of us?
Well, cremation kind of hits me right between the eyes. But it's
air quality, baby.
Yeah, it's all right. They have filters for that. Okay.
Well, and as we go out the door, wouldn't it be like really ironic and kind of cool to burn a little more carbon?
Absolutely.
Got you guys. Another 0.5 degree.
Well, no, if they want to take the carbon out of the air, all they have to do is lock us up for 9 months, and all of a sudden, oh wow, the environment got clean. Oh,
remember when that happened? It didn't completely clean itself, but it was markedly better.
It was dramatically better, and they never wanted to necessarily correlate it, and they still claim that was not a cure, but indeed it is. But okay, but back to the park. There's some great people out there, but I want them to celebrate the day. We're all breaking down, but we all make concessions as we get older. What we don't need to chase is the fountain of youth, or, wish we could go back in time because H.G. Wells is not around for that.
Right. It'd be nice if that were happening. Although I kind of suspect that there was a documentary movie made in the future. It was called Idiocracy. I kind of suspect that they actually sent it back on the time machine, which was actually an integral part of the plot. because it really parallels a lot of the stuff that we're doing today. So not to like tease a future show. We are talking at the dog park this week on if I've got Siri and I've got Google and I've got AI, why do I need to go to school? So we're actually developing that. But this group of old people, we didn't despair. We were practical people. We came up, politics, and we just had the election. So we were like, hey, you know what? Let's write a proposition. We've got this. Let's make this as cool. And it really goes towards your sense of basically going out in a celebratory, joyful manner. So, hopefully the numbers line up right and we get Prop 69 because that'd be kind of cool.
Because it works for everybody.
And first we're going to call it shortening senior suffering. So we had like a nice like alliterative title and it was catchy. And we're like shortening's probably not going to work. I think we should probably do reducing better. And then we thought, well, and senior, it's like one of those labels. People get offended. How about elder? Let's do elders, kind of like wisdom and stuff. So reducing elder suffering is the name of the because one of the things we agreed on was proposition. If it is not written with deceptive language, it shouldn't even be on the ballot.
Right. It has to be written deceptively.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you want to be able to capture both sides voting for you, thinking they're getting what they want when neither side ends up getting much of anything. So reducing elder suffering. Now, listen to all this cool stuff we've got. And this is when, it's funny because we shared this with some middle-aged people later on. And they were like horrified at first. They're like, you're going to kill my mom? You're going to kill my dad? I value my elders. They're important people in my life. And I said, well, wait a minute. We'll make it good. And so the state of California, as soon as this proposition passes, is going to send a carton of cigarettes to every person in California over the age of 45. Let's get this train rolling. And we're doing that. It's kind of like almost an ode to Hollywood because, look at like Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart didn't walk around in Depends, forgetting people's names, embarrassing himself or being in a home, being locked away, right? He made a movie and then he died. Why? Because he lived in the greatest time frame of American history, the 40s, 50s, and 60s, when everybody smoked cigarettes. And he was he was surfing the wave. He was at the head of the line. And he could roll a cigarette with one hand and talk a girl into bed with the other. It was amazing. And so he died a hero. He died with this mystique. I can remember Woody Allen in Play It Again, Sam. And he was smoking because he wanted to be like Sam Spade. He wanted to be cool. And one of his friends went up to say, hey, this is like the early 70s before they knew better. But he said, hey, smoking's going to take 20 years off your life. And Woody, as Sam, kind of turned to him and said, yeah, but it was the last 20 years. I didn't want those anyway. and so, John Wayne died a hero. What if he'd been like just a mumbling mess? Everybody would have been like, poor guy. They would have felt sympathy for him and stuff like that. But he would have just been suffering without the mystique, without the adulation, without, he might not have even noticed the adulation. Cognitive decline is that way.
Well, to be fair, we didn't have social media back then, and we didn't have a camera in every room. And I can imagine that Humphrey Bogart and John Wayne near the end didn't need to be on social media, didn't need to have a family member talk about how horrible it is, as we see today, of people we've known in our lifetimes, that they're capitalizing off of the fact that their husbands or their fathers are preparing to die a miserable death. So we don't know about them. But that was a time, Scott.
We're preparing to die a miserable death, but then they're keeping us alive forever.
Yeah, to make money, to capitalize, true capitalism.
Yeah. So my miserable death goes from like 6 weeks to like 70 years. And I've got to be there and kind of bear witness to it all. And that was the mood at the table. It was a really interesting discussion. So we've got the free cigarettes at age 45, because I've got a friend at the dog park who's 46, Letitia, and she deserves to be on this train. It's time for her to hop aboard. Booze certificates, right? I mean, free booze. And they're like, well, what if they don't want their cigarettes and their booze? I said, well, you could trade them for illicit drugs or something. Who cares? Whatever gets you to the exit on your terms. That's what it is. So booze and cigarettes. Well, that's important, right? We hated our healthcare. Our healthcare is so discouraging and so cumbersome and so time oriented, and it feels like sometimes that they're just racking up billings on us, to be honest. It's like they're bringing us back and bringing us back and bringing us back. And some of this stuff's intractable. It's just not able to be solved. And other of this stuff is just they're just kind of goofing around with 17 steps to get to a fairly simple answer, because they can bill 17 times while we sit around.
Right.
Linda tore her meniscus 6 weeks ago. And she didn't know she tore it because it took her a month to get an MRI. Right. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I used to hang out with football people, and then you're walking like, it's nothing lateral, so it's not an ACL. I bet you tore a meniscus. And sure enough, after the MRI, it took her another month to get the results. And then they said, yeah, you've got 2 tears in your meniscus. And this is like the not the artificial knee. This is the real one. And then they said, come back in another month. And they gave her an injection and told her to wrap it up and put a bandage, a brace on it, and said, come back in another month and we'll tell you, we'll look at it and see what we can do. You're 76. Walking is like the most important thing in your life. It's you're living for your daily walking. You're bragging about your steps. And the health system does this to you. So we agreed. So part of this proposition is going to be the elimination of healthcare. Thank you. We'll pass. And so we don't, no more doctor's visits, no more, semi-satisfactory results. If we've got something, it's either going to kill us or it ain't. And we were all at the table. We were all like, you know what? That's a good step. Let's do this. No more colonoscopies, baby. We're done. And so that was one of the things here. One of the cooler things, and you may appreciate, I don't know if you're like one of those people that likes to eat, but Meals on Wheels. You've heard of that?
I have heard of it.
Yeah, a very valuable service for our elders and an important part of their dietary intake and stuff like that. Do you know what they get? It's like school cafeteria food.
Right.
It's awful. Have you ever been to a nursing home?
Yes.
You get kielbasa and sauerkraut ground up.
Oh, cool. Cool.
In its own grease. And they add a little ketchup.
Something to look forward to.
And then they serve it to you cold.
Well, of course.
So this proposition is going to take some money. And California's going to do this because we're made of money, right? And what we're going to do is basically glazed donuts.
Okay.
Double cheeseburgers.
Okay.
Chili fries.
Cheesecake.
It's going to be the decadent diet. It's going to be everything that you really want to be eating, but the doctor told you 20 years ago you've got to stop doing this or it's going to kill you. It's going to be the stuff that your kids won't prepare for you because they don't think it's healthy. I mean, I hate to refer to another Woody Allen film. Two Woody Allen references probably is too many. But in Sleeper, the documentary from the future that he did about the health food guy who woke up in I think it was like 600 years later, he wakes up and the doctors are smoking cigarettes and drinking scotch, and he's like, wow, I wouldn't think the future was going to be like that. This stuff's going to kill you. I spent all this time making healthy foods. And they laughed at him and said, you know what? Science didn't quite understand it at that point. Now we understand that all of that stuff was really, really good for you. And so now everybody smokes and nobody eats health food. And There you go. And it's a documentary, right? I mean, anything that comes from the future probably was sent back in time. And so ultimately, now we know the truth.
So,
So,
was it strapped on the back of a unicorn?
in all likelihood, I mean, in the future, unicorns are probably somebody finds some DNA and we start recreating them, right?
Okay.
And then we have like giant herds of unicorns running around and poking people with their horns.
Right.
So we're gonna really amp up the Meals on Wheels thing, and it's gonna be cheesecake for dinner.
There you go.
It's gonna be everything good. Now, another thing that we thought of was elders and their devices. We talked a little bit about it earlier. It's like these things are impossible. It's like, what the heck am I doing here? I can't remember my entry code. I haven't used it in 4 months. Hello, it's all Greek to me. We're going to give elders a device that has a single radio station on it, and it's got an on and off switch and a volume control. And we're going to give them their choice of playlists with kind of a caveat. So ultimately, because again, California is all about cultural competency. We're all about honoring people's things. There'll be a Spanish version. There'll be an English version. There'll be a version for hard rockers. There'll be a version for Asian Americans of any of the backgrounds and their songs from their time. And with one kind of caveat, and that is the songs are going to be exit songs. So like for me as a rocker, it's like I'm going to get the Doors. This is the end. Beautiful friend, the end. We'll never see each other again. So the pop people will get Gilbert or Sullivan, right? In a little while from now, when I'm not feeling any less sour, I promise myself to take a walk and visit a nearby tower, climbing to the top to throw myself off. And songs like that. So so far away. Doesn't anybody stay in one place anymore? So we'll come up with the ultimate. I mean, in Spanish they're called cortavenas, literally vein cutting songs, and we'll come up with the playlists and develop really awesome playlists. So all you have to do is plug in your generation, what kind of music you like, what language you want it in, and you're going to get a single playing radio with that set list. And then it'll just play it over and over because, again, with cognitive-related, aging decline stuff, you don't really remember hearing it yesterday anyway. So we're going to use that as kind of your tool, not only to kind of assist you to the exit, right? We're going to help you to feel that way. Then we'll open up, some clinics, nice clinics, playing quiet, relaxing music with beautiful meditative colors and kind, friendly staff who will, plug you in and give you kind of a half hour to think of, just like Soylent Green. Give you a half hour to think about things while you fade off into the sunset. And so you're going to spend the end of your life lulling in pleasure, not brought down by the hassles, not brought down by the expectations that I'm supposed to be 40 anymore. It's going to be joyful. It's going to be wonderful. And it's going to, we've got a housing crisis. Guess what? All these guys are hoarding wealth. They're hoarding resources. They all got houses. House has like a 16-year-old poodle mix running around pooping all over the place. Those are going to be available homes because we're going to deal with this crisis proactively. And we're not going to have an elder crisis. We're going to have plenty of space for the next generation to approach their own exit paths. So we're clearing the runways, basically. And so, anyhow, another lady at the dog park, Lucy, her aunt died and left her a couple $1,000, and she kind of thinks that money's demonic and is possessed. So she agreed to kind of use that money to go to attorneys to get this language drafted on the proposition. So stay tuned. I think probably we'll get this done in the next year or two. If Justin, if you want to be one of the first ones to sign the petition, as long as you've got an address and citizenship, we can take your signature and add you to the list of thousands of people who believe that this is really the best way for us to handle our aging crisis. We didn't want 80. We didn't want 90. Nothing works.
Well,
we want to die happy and proud.
I'll tell you, because we live in a democracy, I feel you have every right to go put this proposition out there, and I will sign it. I will not endorse it, but I will sign it.
So you'll give us the benefit of a jump ball with the public.
Well, exactly. Who am I to judge? But remember, you're talking California, and in the state of California, the short time I've lived here, the populace has voted down daylight savings time twice in state propositions.
You know what? I still tried to explain it at the dog park because we were all like bumming out about aging. And I said, hey, my friend Justin Case is a huge fan of daylight savings time. And he figured out that why are we doing an hour? Why not do a year? And then why are we springing forward? Why don't we always fall back? And as a result, he's still 34.
There you go. Now, I wish I was that bright, but that's a great theory, and I am going to adopt it. Yeah, it's a great theory. I like it.
Right. It's like I use daylight savings time to your advantage.
Yeah. Spring back. We're springing back a year or a decade. I think you have your choice.
To me, daylight savings time has always been like the fall back has always been like, yeah, that extra hour, I'm grooving. And spring forward has always been like a month of torture because I can never kind of catch. It takes a long time for my circadian clock to catch up to things.
Well, having been grown up in Arizona, it makes no sense. It never will make any sense, but they tell us we need it because we're saving that oil that's being fired in those furnaces back east in the wintertime.
Yeah, it's something about cows feeding on schedule or something too. They always, kind of like fluoridating in the water, man. They were always like giving us like all these reasons why it was like super duper important. So I guess we need to like pull it away and see if those reasons were real.
Well, I don't know that they dare do that because California certainly likes its traditions of mandating what the people should do.
Yeah, that's why we're putting this on a proposition so we can control those mandates. we're stepping behind the wheel of the vehicle and putting the pedal to the metal and putting on blindfold and steering. We're going to turn ourselves into a Leonard Skinner song.
I want people to realize not everybody will face dramatic cognitive decline. I've known a lot of people in their 90s that are very lucid and
sharp as a tack. We call that.
Well, we call it very lucid because cognitive thought still exists in them.
Yeah, absolutely. But that was probably the generation that didn't really suck down as many microplastics as all of the rest of us. And so nowadays, the people in their 60s and 70s, it's like, I'll give you an example. I am heck bent on remembering everybody's names at the dog park.
Wow.
And it's hard because you get 3 or 4 strangers every week. And you've got all these regular people. And then you've got people who show up like every 2 months. And so you're constantly kind of going back and it's funny because it's way easier to remember the dog's names than it is the people. But so now the elders of the park, and there's a lot of us who are elders because honestly, stuff like dog park is perfect for retirement. It gives you a sense of community. It gives you a place to go. You get outdoors. You get some fresh air. You get a little, gentle exercise. So it's really a fun place to be. You become experts in dog behavior. I could explain things about resource guarding and pack behavior that I had no clue 6 months ago. I was like, whatever. Dogs are dogs. Now I'm like, no, look at that dog schooling that other dog. Look at the older dog stepping in and telling that dog what to do. Look at that dog ignoring that and getting yelled at. It's fun to watch, and ultimately, I'll be honest. The 70s and 60s people were, like I said, it's probably microplastics. We were drinking bottled water that had been like sitting in the sun for 6, 7, 8 years, and nobody told us that the plastic was turning into stuff that would clog our neurons in our head.
Well, that's true,
And this
but
bodes well for the show, right, Justin?
well, I don't know that it does, but and the
In
younger,
6 months, we'll probably be doing the same show over again.
yeah, exactly, because, and we'll try and do better. And then we're dealing with generational medications now, and some of those medications are questionable, and they interact with our behavior.
And I don't want to be goofy about it, but when they rolled out hand sanitizer, I was like, has anybody tested this? What happens after, because like the artificial sweeteners, right? The pink stuff and the blue stuff and the yellow stuff. It's like after the pink stuff had been around for 15 years, they said, this is kind of poisonous. It's like toxic, causes cancer. So you have the blue stuff instead.
Right.
And then you're doing the blue stuff, and then they're like, well, this is going to kill your kidneys.
No.
Incontinence is already an elderly problem. Well, guess what? I just shot my kidneys to heck by drinking, diet soda for 17 years. And now we get the yellow stuff, and who knows?
Well, it's kind of like when hand sanitizer became popular during the
That thing.
jab event. When I looked at the labels of the hand sanitizers, not that I knew anything about it, it really had no capacity to kill any bacteria and or germs, because all those germs require contact time and how it's applied and what is that germ. But we watched people race to buy them. Now,
the market was tremendous, and I was working with health department staff, and they're kind of chemically savvy people, and I'm in part of substance use recovery stuff, so I'm chemically savvy, and we're like looking at the ingredients, going, ethyl alcohol. Oh, I know what that is. That's booze. And then glycerin to make it a little bit stickier, right? To make it kind of
exactly.
spreadable.
Like shampoo.
And we had one that came from Korea that was gin. I swear, it had like all of the kind of subtle aromatics that gin has, and that one was super popular. We had one that was like, smelled like the worst tequila ever bottled. And that one, it was like, we had cases and cases and cases and cases. We give it away to people, they bring it back.
But
I think I'd rather catch COVID.
But it was, no, it was primarily a placebo. And I think it made people feel better. What I made for myself was, lo and behold, water on paper towels in Ziploc bags. Because if you look at cleaning agents and sterilization properties of things, water works a lot better than most things.
Well, as a rock tumbler and as somebody who grew up in the 60s, I went 99 and 44/100% pure. So I ivory soap, baby.
Yeah, well, not lava.
and warm water. No, lava will mess up your rocks. So the last stage when you're tumbling rocks is burnishing. And so you basically shave a bar of ivory soap into your rock tumbler and let it run for 24 or 36 hours with the rocks. And it polishes the polished rocks. So they're even better than they were. So I had, I buy large quantities of ivory soap. And so I was ready. There were no supply chain problems.
A lot of people want to say that our generation is a bit tougher because of monkey bars and drinking out of garden hoses and not wearing seatbelts. But what they don't realize, what it really was, is our mothers used to wash us with lava soap. A pumice.
It's got like pumice embedded in it.
Yeah, and if you can survive that, you will indeed be tough.
Well, you see, but we had that when we were kids, and all of a sudden, microabrasion became like the big hot. It was as popular as pickleball, and all of a sudden, everybody's scraping their faces off to try and avoid, the normal age-associated wrinkles that we used to think made people look wiser and more smart and stuff like that. So lava was ahead of its time.
And just needed another market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're getting a lot of wisdom out of the dog park, and it's really cool to imagine that community for those of us that aren't in it or feel we don't have time for it. But what a resource for everybody out there.
It's a fun place, and like I said, we were explaining this like, let's solve the elderly problem thing to younger people there. Emily's super adventurous. She's got a brand new shelter dog. She's hanging out at the park, and she's like one of those go for it people. And she's like, yeah, you guys nailed it. This sounds really good. And she works in healthcare, so she sees kind of some of the harder elements of the healthcare story, and so she was down with it. We've got a Chinese person, an Asian American person of Chinese extraction. He's got like the coolest little white bull terrier. It's like the target dog without the spots. And she's relentless, and she's learning. It's funny watching her kind of grow up in the park experience, because the other dogs school her, but she's got so much energy, and she's so strong, and she's amazing. But I was explaining it to him, and he loves his dad and takes care of his dad. His dad's part of his family business, and when I first started explaining it, she was just like, "Oh my, how could you guys even think about stuff like this?" And then in the end, he was going, this is pretty good. This is palatable.
Did you tell him?
So we're already kind of conjuring up votes for our proposition.
Well, it's going to be in the wording, and you're probably going to need an attorney of like mind. So,
we're going to get Hollywood spokespeople to do this. Like whoever's like super old by the time this actually hits the streets. We'll get them to come out and say, I wanted to be like Humphrey Bogart. Instead, I'm being forced to extend my life unnaturally. And I'm all down with it. This is the way to go. Enough of this, like having to get like 18 doctors' permissions to pull a plug on you. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's die with grace, with honor, with pleasure, without the expectation that we're supposed to live forever, or that we're supposed to not only live forever, but be cool about it, be young about it, not like trouble the world with our elderly presence, but get like surgery and take all sorts of expensive products and extend ourselves beyond our what the cards had been dealt to us. So we like it. We think it has promise. Thanks for making space for this. The dog park appreciates a platform to kind of get this stuff out and maybe change American consciousness in some really positive ways.
Well, maybe you should give him a chance to talk about that celebrity lawyer you want, and maybe Judge Judy would have some time.
Well, I'm thinking quid pro quo, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
the benefit of an elderly attorney getting this through is they'd start getting those cigarettes right away. It's save them.
And the cheesecake. Everybody will be Cheesecake for the Day Club.
Oh, I'm like double with cheese, and I'm actually looking forward to this.
Well, they all talk about planning, and it sounds like all of you are planning, and that's good. Even without a proposition, you can do your own plan.
This is true. I mean, you need resources, you need accountability. You need to have your own self-management strategy for sure. But sometimes it's harder for us as elders to get our children are trying to like, hey, Dad, live forever.
Yeah. Well, one thing, the spirit of Dr. Kevorkian would be proud of all of you.
Michigan guy, man. I grew up in his shadow of doom.
But what a
and they would always get him in trouble, and he was like, it seemed like he was being really nice to the people for whom he was getting charged with murder.
Well, yeah, but he was a celebrity, to say the least.
And he made space. Honestly, he took a political stand, a healthcare stand, and made space. several states now have the ability to do this. It is harder than heck, though. I don't know if anybody's researched it. You have to jump through 18,000 hoops, and guess what? When you're old, when you're tired, you don't want to jump through hoops anymore. It's like reprogramming your phone. It's like, just put your hands up and go. I don't know.
Well,
So, but it exists.
if you're going into the hospital with a living will for non-intervention,
Oh yeah. Don't plug me back in, baby.
well, don't believe that is the case because it typically falls on whoever your attending doctor is.
Well, yeah, they're going to plug you back in, and then they're going to ask your kids, "What do you want to do with this comatose breathing machine?"
Only after your financial resources
Are completely drained.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
that being said, if that's what your beliefs are, before you check into the hotel, have your advocates talk to the chief administrator of the hospital, and if they won't agree to that, they need to assign a doctor to you that will respect your beliefs. Change hospitals.
I want these songs playing in my hospital room. I, I, I want these medications.
And I don't want to give any insight to myself, but back in the day, I was in the hospital awaiting some pretty serious surgery, and I was in the shower doing my prep, and I was singing, and all of a sudden the nurse busted in the door, and she said, "You can't sing that song," because my voice was, I was singing, and now the end is near.
Nice. You're bumming the hospital out.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it was just a simple critique of my singing, but I'll never forget that. And I found that funny and comforting at that time.
Right. And if the nurse had that kind of happy, nurses are amazing people because they can turn on, and guy nurse, girl nurse, doesn't matter. They can turn on that "I love you" charm.
Oh yeah.
And it just kind of eases stuff. You feel better anyway because you feel like this random person cares for you, and they do a wonderful job. And I fully salute their efforts in helping us to maintain our sanity when we're in dangerous healthcare positions.
Well, and I think they do. I think the vast majority of them sincerely care. And if you believe your doctor's going to advocate and try and keep you alive, you better have some damn good nurses that are advocating for you.
Oh yeah. Well, those electric cars are expensive.
You betcha.
They ain't no charging machine on every street corner, so.
All right, Scott. I think you carried the water on this, and I don't know that I was much help. We'll see how it goes over.
It's funny because again, the dog park's kind of beginning to mention royalties. That's why I was talking about patronage, because ultimately I'm just kind of the note taker now. I'm not the content isn't like I'm not like inventing content. I'm just kind of, oh, that was good, I'm going to write that one down. And so they're realizing that they're the show creators now, and ultimately I think we're going to get a bill.
Well, possibly, but they need to recognize that we take their random thoughts and we package them into some logic.
Well, and how unexpected that something as innocent or simple or plain as a dog park ends up becoming kind of like thought changing, deep consideration stuff. And they do some heavy lifting over there.
Well, of course they do, and it is a community. I mean, it is a real community of not necessarily like minds, but certainly like interests and good people for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. It's a fun group, and we're lucky. And like I said, next week we're going to take on education, baby.
Well,
so this show's going to underline red.
I will be more involved, I assure you.
We'll have to left click on this thing and do some healing.
All right. Yeah. Do not as I say. Do as I do. No, what is it? I forget. Okay. All right, everybody. This has been Just In Case and Scott bringing you American Consciousness. Thanks for joining us and tolerating us. Remember, additional information and links provided in this video is read more. Today's the day to subscribe to this channel. Please learn more about Scott when time permits.